Good day, my crypto friends. It's a pleasure to see you today. Today, I'm here with Eugene and Steve from EOS Tribe. We're going to be talking about some new EOS referendums. We're going to be talking about the voting portal that Steve and Eugene have been working on, and we're just going to get into everything that's new with EOS right now and what EOS Tribe's up to. So go ahead and take it away, gentlemen.
I'll let Eugene start.
Thank you for having us. It's been a journey since we met last time, and definitely kept us busy. We were traveling a lot, and there's a lot to share for this podcast. Yes.
Cool, man.
So Korea and China, and now it's looking like Berlin and London, and Oslo, and just all these places that we couldn't have imagined we'd be going to.
Yeah, it's wild.
Time last year, yeah. So,
are you guys going to make it out to London for the hackathon?
Yeah, I'm actually entering that hackathon with Nathan Rampel,
cool,
and another guy. So.
Nice, man. What do you guys? Do you know what you're building? What you're presenting?
Still working on it. I think Eugene.
Yeah. We basically, Steve and I, we broke apart, working at different teams. We might be competing against each other. But it will be a good opportunity for, different teams to kind of consolidate from different BP, and join a team. So I'm joining up with other BPs, and we will be building something cool. We haven't quite determined what yet. We are doing some brainstorming, so some good ideas, but it will be decided basically by, the full London hackathon.
Cool.
Yeah, people don't realize it, but Eugene programs shell you know what I mean? Not just C++, but it's maybe, and I can relate to this. Maybe we're not able to keep up with some of these young whippersnappers like Jay and these young guys that are just stay up 16, 18 hours straight. We got kids, but we know a thing or two. We're still valuable. Don't put us out to pasture yet. We're good for a hackathon.
Yeah, for sure.
Sometimes skill and experience can compensate for
being older. Yeah,
absolutely. You guys are the Tom Brady of coding, huh?
I don't know. I think anybody in software, and we talked about this at Tulip, that if you're on the UX side, design, or you're actually doing the back end, or programming, we all go through in this industry a period of time, and probably your viewers could relate to this who might be technical, particularly in your mid to late 30s, where you can't keep up with the 20-somethings that are scrumming it up, 24 hours straight. They're working on deadlines, and you have a kid, you're older, your heart hurts when you stay up, 20 hours like that. Yeah,
20 Red Bulls anymore, man.
Yeah, you talked about that. You were like, man, I was looking around and I felt like this wasn't an industry. If you were aging, if you were over 30, in the Valley, you were dead weight. You know what I mean? And I think that's an unfortunate thing about engineering culture in general. But that's something that we're seeing in the EOS ecosystem. Is some of these guys who've been out of a job for 10 years are adding some of the most value and knowledge and depth of knowledge for the wisdom. Because it's we're born into this world smart, but not wise. Wisdom is learned. And that's a very interesting thing that we've noticed is some guys that been out of the industry 10 years, guys like Jim, who you come to find out are some of the most knowledgeable engineers in the world, on internet traffic, you know what I mean? So, but if you just met him in the street and you were a hyper, competitive developer, you'd be like, who's this old guy?
Well, EOS is bringing so many different aspects all together that you need more general knowledge. You need knowledge from so many different places. It's not just this one specific language and this one specific niche to hammer out an app in the next 2 weeks. It's a giant ecosystem. So all of a sudden, all that wisdom becomes part of the game. That's what's cool. The EOS community is harnessing a lot of knowledge out there and focusing in one place from a lot of different
and your role changes. You start mentoring more and teaching more. And that's kind of the direction me and both Eugene are going with EOS Rise. And I'll let him talk about that. This is all Eugene and Phil's relationship that pulled that off. I'm just the lipstick as usual. So.
Well, let's hear about some what projects you guys. What's new since we talked a couple months ago? What projects you guys are up to?
You should tell them about the OCI partnership. It's pretty big for us.
Yeah, so we have, we are working on multiple fronts, right? One is, as Steve mentioned, education. We have established partnership with OCI. We did, Phil and I, we did a partnership workshop right after Tulip conference, practically a day after EOS went live. We did a BP workshop where we showed all the ropes, starting a test net from ground up. We've shown all the latest technology and how to use it for EOS. And so that was a good experience. And I think we figured out that Phil and I are working well together. We can complement each other well. And so we established a formal partnership now where we will conduct regular workshops. One is coming up in Dallas in October. And so that's one area where we have been.
Yeah, the first one is October 10th and 11th in Denver. That's the actual kickoff date, and then all the other dates are going to be in Europe before DevCon, which is the big EOS developer conference in Tampa.
So that's you and Phil Mesnier that are teaching EOS workshops.
We're going to add a UX layer as well, eventually, but for starts, probably the first 3 to 5 dates are going to be just a 2-day, hardcore, full stack, top to bottom, the network layer, everything.
And is this remote or all in person?
No, we're going to these places.
Oh, cool.
And then Steve and I are busy on our, different projects we are focusing on. We are working on 2 wallet applications. One desktop wallet, Metatron, that will be open source, that Steve is working on, and I'm working on iPhone wallet application that will be announced later, but it's in active development.
To everyone that's been asking, you guys have been working on this wallet for 3 or 4 months. What's the deal? Well, the Metatron wallet didn't start until even 60 days ago, 45 days ago. So we've got another 30, 45 days to completion. We refactored the service layer because we didn't feel good about the architecture that a lot of people were using. We actually brought on a guy who is a huge Electron developer in their ecosystem, over to make sure that when we release this, it will be, and I stand on this, one of the most well-programmed Electron wallets and secure Electron wallets in the ecosystem. We only use SSL endpoints, top to bottom. I mean, Eugene's going to look over it. In addition, we're going to have it independently audited, and before we even release it to the community, it will be under an MIT license with the AAL assurance license for the front end, so they don't, scammers don't just jack our front end and, mimic the wallet and people think they're using ours. So that's basically on my front with Eugene. We have in the Taurus wallet, the problem is and I'll let Eugene extend on this, is the legal climate in the US. If we release a wallet, we have to pay license fees across 50 something states that total hundreds of thousands of dollars to maintain per year. And our wallets aren't commercial in nature. We're not making anything off of them.
You guys are basically having to operate under the banking regulations or something like that.
Just to release a software wallet to hold your crypto. We're not
release it open source or let someone else release it open source, out of.
Well, that's what we're doing. Yeah.
With Metatron, we are going to release it open source. So we're just giving it back to the community and kind of making it a distributed with iPhone applications. As you well aware, it cannot be just open source. It has to be brought to Apple Store. There has to be organization backing it up, right?
That organization has to meet the legal requirements of the states they're operating.
Organization which is most likely not based in the United States. So we're building a partnership. So EOS Tribe would be like an OCI for EOS. We're actually developers.
We're building a fractal. It's called Fractal. Yeah.
But somebody else will be releasing that wallet, not us. So
basically, we're building a separate business entity called Fractal. It's a business incubator that will be either established in probably Switzerland. The places, you know what I mean? We're all familiar with the places that are friendly. Estonia, we're looking at several places and what's most cost effective, but we will probably establish that business entity over the next few months and overseas in a place that's friendly to it, and then release these wallet projects as well as any other dApp projects through that channel, because as US citizens, we have to go by the book. And it's unfortunate, it sucks that it's held our release back. I feel like a lot of the people in the network, all over the world who are in more friendly places have benefited time to market and it's held us back. And we've contributed to so many, like the referendum contract stuff, and the the community UIs, the outreach, the EOS portal. We've contributed to so many things, but when it starts to come to like us as an entity releasing software that interacts with this stuff, we just have to be very mindful. We have families, and hopefully people out there understand why we've been slow moving with this stuff. Is it's not as simple as just shipping an MVP. If it was there, it would already be out.
Yeah, and you guys are adding a lot. I think people can kind of wrap their head around that. I see you everywhere in the community. So as far as a business incubator, is it going to be for other dApps that are trying to launch?
It's going to be mainly just early dApps that we, just as our promise in our announcement post.
So from EOS Tribe or from anyone?
From anyone. That's the other benefit of Fractal, is that as a BP operation, we cannot exchange or share money directly with other BP operations, but an individual from a BP operation could certainly have a separate entity that's an incubator or a project, and that's a way to collaborate, basically still staying within the guidelines and staying away from any accusations of collusion. We want to take it a step further and have a transparent incubator carrying over the EOS philosophy, so people know the projects, and eventually maybe even a DAC layer to it. So not so much like a traditional DAO, but just a self-auditing membership system, so people who are a part of the incubator have some form of transparency internally about like the operations that are moving. There's a reporting dashboard, and it's all kind of virtual, so people can jump on, they can actually see what projects, they can vote on projects and have a say so in the incubator. It's more of like an early stage seed kind of phase where they need UI, they need UX, they need branding, they need people to vet and look at the smart contract or write the smart contract. They need introductions to capital and people who might be interested in their project, and then how to pitch it. Those really early stage entrepreneurs who may be coming through our workshops who want to get started with a dApp might go loose and, just completely, throw to the wind any kind of concern about legal implications of what they're doing. And that's another thing that we want to do, particularly for people in the West, is just to point them, to the things that we found and said, hey guys, like this could be really dangerous. I mean, they're giving out jail time like candy. Like, you might want to just follow the rules, by the book, every single little thing that they say to do. And that's all we're not trying to be like a VC arm or bring on any capital partners necessarily. We want it to be independent. It's a lot of the people from our core team who we were in this kind of impasse where we could not actually pay them crypto or give them token distributions under the current law, because we would be subject to audit and all kinds of things. You basically have to, as soon as you get the rewards, you have to cash them out on Kraken, because if you hold them too long, you start to incur a lot of capital gains tax, and it gets really complicated. So we've been just doing every single little thing by the book. We don't move any crypto out of our rewards wallet to any other third parties or vendors. We pay them fiat, everything. Like we said, I mean, we were trying to run a stand-up operation and be the example. That's why we obviously sponsored the Wyoming Hackathon coming up this next week, and the proof of stake dinner is to try to bring together those minds and learn from the people a little further along in the legislative process, what the best approach is. I mean, in the West Coast firsthand, y'all are worried about it too. It's a lot of innovation is being stifled right now because we're out of that halo phase where they didn't know what it was. But people were just shipping a bunch of stuff and it didn't matter. And now they're being pretty stern the last year or two, if you cross the line, new people, we are going to run through the ringer. You know what I mean? If you're doing an unregistered ICO, if you're doing anything outside, even mining operations are getting cracked down on. So why we incorporated in Wyoming, why we're sponsoring the Wyoming Hackathon. We want the legislative people here in our government to just be fair. We'll pay our taxes. It might be a little more than other places. We don't mind bringing it here. The U.S. gives a lot of protections for your capital, and as a citizen, you pay for that. We're not complaining. We're not like one of those people that just hates the government or hates the banks. We don't like some of the people in it, but the inherently, just like we said last time, a bank or a government is not inherently corrupt. It's just those business models have become corrupt over hundreds and hundreds of years, and it's up to us to change that stuff.
And I think Wyoming Hackathon will be a good platform to meet, people from government, and legislature, and have that conversation I know some of the Wyoming government will be there, presented, and so it will be a good platform to have that conversation.
Absolutely.
So another update that I wanted to do is we are making some significant upgrades to our infrastructure. We are taking our existing, we had kind of a hybrid bare metal servers. We actually decided to take one of our Utah operation where we only had bare metal servers. We are still gonna be running on bare metal, but we are taking it to a virtual VMware cloud using some latest technology when it comes to storage. We're gonna use we have a pretty bright IT support in our organization. We are bringing some innovative technologies for storage that will be faster than SSD solutions and solid state drives. So
it's bleeding edge, man. I was really excited when I heard those specs, dude. Like, this really is like governments, I believe, and like certain like colleges with high throughput. There's not a ton of people using this exact technology like right at the moment.
Yeah.
It's a file compression method. I was looking into it. I don't know a lot about it, but Eugene can extend more on it. But the IT guy the infrastructure guy we're working with is like, the problem is the way this data is being handled is not going to be ideal. You need to use this. I can upgrade you. And he was telling me, and I'm like, what? Like, there's not many people using this, so it's exciting.
So with that infrastructure upgrade and the speed upgrade, is there a security trade-off there, or is this?
No security trade-off. It's going to be more secure, not less.
Mm-hmm.
It will improve our performance at least tenfold.
Wow.
And again, I don't want to drop all the technical terms here.
I think
say that technical details are coming out in the announcement.
In the BP report. Well, we also want to make sure it's accurate. So it's bleeding edge stuff, and in that particular area of how they're managing the packets and actually executing this and doing it. Eugene's not, an expert on that particular topic. He's mainly, the making sure that just the technical side is secure on the physical server itself, the software, you know what I mean? The network and security guy that we've added who is handling this has recommended it multiple times, and we finally just gave in and just put up the extra cost. We always said, and I want everyone to be clear, we were kind of based it on Reddit recently for, your latency is bad. And that was the day that he called us out. We felt like it was opportunistic because we were literally upgrading the Wyoming, the Utah facility. Mm-hmm. We were in the process of upgrading to something that can handle just a patch in the short term while we put this larger infrastructure in place, which was going to take 2 or 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. But you had been sourcing and putting in the orders almost a month ago, to get ready for this. But it's expensive. We have to pay for it too. We have to accumulate some money to make sure that we can afford it and be good for like a 4 to 6 month period. We can't just like go jump in, and that's for anyone out there that has seen any latency issues. Like, we're aware of it. We addressed it. We know that some of our equipment that we initially used was older. It was just so we could start with bare metal. When the network didn't need it, we did not want to take on VC or any investment. That equipment is expensive. I happen to have an old big data server that is now 3 or 4 years old and is slightly outdated for the processor speeds, but much of the, the hard drives and, some of the equipment can still be parted out and used for other stuff. We were just trying to, be lean and keep our costs down. You can't blame us,
Yeah, you guys are running a business. You gotta bootstrap it. That's part of, that's a whole factor of a stable block producer is running a, financially stable as well. Yeah. So
we don't want to make decisions that will make us potentially unstable. So we've been trying to be very frugal and diligent, even with our travel. What are the best opportunities for travel and what's going to add value to the community? Things that we don't absolutely need to go to or aren't critical, we cut back on. And other projects like Valor, the Valor Fund that we were working on, we're kind of at an impasse with MOTI and ECAF. They cannot release the information to validate. The problem is if we put up a fund and someone from the community stepped forward to help manage it, Thomas or the Alliance or somebody, how would they go about validating whether or not the person who provided the key and made a transaction, signed a signature, was the owner if their account had already been phished. In the case of the accounts that had been frozen, that's not as big of a deal. But in any other accounts that have been phished, it's a problem. So, and even in the accounts that have been frozen because they had been compromised as well, the problem is how do we know that the person presenting that key or signing a transaction is not the hacker?
Yeah.
And the person that compromised it. ECAF knows their real identity, but ECAF cannot confirm their identity and is not willing at this time. They don't have the bandwidth or the resources to work in that capacity. So the Valor Fund was at a standstill, and we had one last hope that they would issue basically a PGP key or an AES encrypted file, like two signatures that could be shared, and then encrypt before it hits the chain and put the encrypted part into the memo, and then actually have a zero knowledge proof where it's just their case number and they're the only people with that key for the case number. So we don't know their identity. They just confirm that that's the case number, and then ECAF validates it, and then we know that it's them. But we don't even need to know who they are. ECAF can keep that information. We just have their case number, which could be a hash string on chain, right? And then they encrypt a PGP of that hash, so the average user doesn't even know the string.
Yeah,
that's a correct cryptographic way to approach this problem.
Yeah, and we came up with that and suggested it. We were even trying to work on it, but that particular project is going to take 2 to 3 months minimum to execute and vet and ship something that can do that. Hopefully the community comes forward with something, but we are putting together a proposal for that process to just address what Valor showed us is there is a larger problem with public funds. BPs, many BPs, not all BPs, should be, as are we, risk averse and against collecting public funds. Like, we could not hold the funds. We could not campaign for funds, but maybe we could found the fund and put the people together, and then they go off. And that was our goal with Valor, is to say, hey, people come forward, whoever wants to step forward to manage this. No one really did. No one wanted to be the responsible party. Two, so then we looked at multi-sig configurations and just, getting that hash from ECAF to confirm the case number, and then putting together maybe a mechanism for this to release some relief funds. So whether there are people who had been, had their account phished, whether they had lost their keys, whatever the case, there would be some relief on maybe ECAF needing some money, some emergency funds to do this stuff so token holders can get their tokens back. We're at a deadlock. The worker proposal system won't happen until referendum, which I'm working on, to get the referendum UIs out for EOS votes. But until that happens, until the worker proposal system is active, we're at a deadlock. But what about, the worker proposal process could take months to vote and get in. There has to be a community relief fund of some kind. That was our ultimate goal, was to say, hey, somebody needs to start a relief fund for these problems. So we don't have bad PR. We don't have these issues.
So you're saying Valor is basically like a safety valve fund. So if are you saying like if someone got hacked, you'd reimburse their funds? Or
We could, if they went through the arbitration process and it was told to them by ECAF that they could not get their money back for 6 months to a year because they're backed up, then we could have a relief fund in place that would be pegged to their wallet address, and then ECAF could deduct that amount, and then actually, the community paid for it, but then that could even act as a reserve for ECAF. It would have been beneficial to them to do this, because we know that the work that they do isn't cheap, and it's time consuming.
And would that Valor Fund be like a bridge until ECAF and everything's set up, maybe a year from now when things are running more smoothly? Is that what it is, a bridge, or is this something that would be
I think longer term, it could become a fund for any type of community relief where there is process involved that would impede the goal. So if there was a big community goal or a big fire that happened, a big PR fire that just needed like 10 grand or 20 grand thrown at it, then there would be some type of community relief fund people could apply to and get access to much quicker, maybe a few weeks or something versus months. And that was our long-term thinking. But in the short term, we were just trying to help the frozen accounts.
Yeah.
That's where it started. But once we went down that road, it became a really complicated thing to traverse. And we will have an update on that in the next week or so, as far as like where we're at with it. But that's why that project fell off, honestly, is we can't do much without ECAF, and we are not handling token holders' identities.
Yeah. So the Valor Fund is on hold until ECAF and the worker proposal system's up.
Hopefully. We're going to post it as a proposal for a general community relief fund, and then kind of pivot the project into more of a community-led thing, not so much tribe trying to lead it and get it started, but hey, here's where we're at. Here's all the resources we have. We've thought all this stuff out. Here's the developers we put in place. Here's some baseline code. You guys, like, you know, and maybe bring on 2 or 3 other people to formulate like an official, an official proposal to be voted on for referendum. So maybe it could go into, you know, the worker proposal system and get some funding, you know, to get started. But that's essentially what some of the other funds are as well, as they're trying to have a fund from the fund, so to speak, that's separated into a separate account, the $1 million they talked about. But I think largely from what I read through that group recently is that it is really allocated towards very specific areas, like general community-oriented relief for token holders and stuff isn't, that I saw, high on the radar. It's more like build things, do events, like stuff of that nature, as far as I know. I haven't been as deeply involved in the worker proposal system as I have the referendum contract, because there is no worker proposal system without the referendum contract. So, you know, I tend to go towards like, okay, I could work on Chintai, I could work on this, I could work on 15 different projects right now. What is the absolute most important? And I publicly apologize for falling off with Chintai back some weeks ago, about a month ago. When I got back, I was just slammed getting back from China and the other trips, and the referendum contract was pressing. You know, they needed the UI for that. I can actually demo the UI for that if you want it.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get into that. So the you built the UI for the referendum portal. Is that
one of the UIs? There's going to be many UIs, and we do, you know, support and hope that you know, as many people as possible create UIs for voting. We're not telling people this is the end all be all UI by any means. It's just that there's, you know, certainly a tier of user that let me make sure that I've got this.
Yeah, go ahead and share your screen and walk us through it.
Okay. Give me 1 second, and here we go. Okay.
Yeah, it's loading. Got it.
Yeah, I can see it.
Do you see the UI now?
Yep.
We can see it good.
Okay. Well, is it my entire desktop? So this is basically this is the new EOS Votes initiative. The thinking behind it, and I said this early on in the group, is that we have a problem with like engineering driven culture right now and in the ecosystem. And that is that people are largely, you know, focused on the technical side, but they're not really focused on, give me just 1 second. This is driving me nuts. They're not really focused on, you know, the end user as much, in my belief, as they should be. I would see time and time again where to some of the more technical people, this was second nature. And yeah, it just works this way. Go use the command line. Like, and I'm like, they don't even know what this is. Like, people don't even fully understand why they would vote on a referendum. They don't even understand what referendum is. Like, we need a general education initiative to pull together, you know, the forum, the referendum, the worker proposal, proxy voting into one thing that kind of like explains what it is. Now, the worker proposal system broke off, and Jay and others, you know, from HK EOS and, you know, EOS Canada have been working really hard on that UI. And I do agree, after seeing it, it's a different approach than I would have done, but I do agree after seeing it, it's much more focused on just the worker proposal system. We will link off to that. That's this link that you see right here, the worker proposal system. We will not be building a UI for that. That was in my initial post for, if you went on Steemit, you might have seen a user-centered approach to the referendum, you know, voting portal. And I look at this as kind of if everyone's familiar with EOS portal.io, that UI I helped like create, I helped design that UI. And the thinking behind that was, you can surely use tons of these wallets and things that you have to download, simple EOS and gray mass, obviously EOS voter, but a lot of the portals were not really explaining to the end user all the little nuances, like how to log into Scatter, how to do all these things. They did afterward, but at that particular time, there was a really big gap in, how to vote for a block producer and like what that process involves. And basically what I see in this initiative is something very similar, is that we need a system that, a UI that everyone, that the entire ecosystem can go and learn about it, and then they can certainly use a wallet or their UI of choosing. And that was kind of the thinking is focusing on the end user and education right out of the gate, and trying to make sure that that the people who don't know what this is have a very clear understanding and know why it's important. So for example, the very first thing they're going to do if they land here is probably click on some of these links. If they're new, new to EOS, they would obviously start here, and that would give them an onboarding page we're working on now that Anna Taylor's working on, that works with us on, exactly like what EOS is, what referendum voting is, and how and why you would actually want to vote. And then that will lead them back into this page where they could actually search for a referendum. That's what this is going to be. So they would look for, anything with that spelling in it. They would be able to filter for referendum. This will display all referendum, but we are going to pull the most voted referendum into this top area here, just for ease of use. Yeah. They would then basically, you can see the EOS Canada referendum. Should we have fun? Sure. Let's have some fun. They would go here. They'd see how many votes are on it. They'd be able to like actually vote yes. They could then actually change their vote. It doesn't appear that they have that plugged in, but eventually they'll be able to change that vote. There's a little place here for the pull request, because as I posted in my, thinking behind the referendum post just most recently, I think it was a few things on the referendum voting process. And that is that, and Luke pointed this out. Let me give props to Luke Stokes, because he was saying this very early on. But if you push a referendum that gets voted in that does not have an actual pull request that has been tested, that is not just a random piece of code that has actually been tested on a test net and vetted and has no bugs, what are the 2/3 plus one voting in? And who is responsible for that referendum change if there is no pull request associated with it? If there is a pull request and it hasn't been changed, where does that put the BPs that voted in if it breaks the network? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And these are serious concerns. It's like no one was really talking about this. I mean, nobody. Seriously, every time, 2 months or a month, once this thing really starts working, it will be the main conversation. But right now, today, I've been posting about this for almost a month and a half, 2 months, since July.
Yeah, I saw what you said there, and it makes a good point. And for some people might be listening to this, you guys, on a podcast as well. So just so you guys know, we're on the EOS votes.io portal, and we're looking through this beautiful interface of how people are going to be able to vote on the referendums, the worker proposals. But to your point, if people are just putting referendums out there, but then someone's got to go and do all that work, and then we don't even know. So you could vote some really complicated referendum in, then you've got a year's worth of code that's going to fall in someone's lap, but we don't have that person designated. So it sounds like what you suggested is that when referendums are going to be put to a vote, they need to have a pull request, they need to be tested on a test net, and they need to, was there a third requirement? To make sure they're pretty far along.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I think that's most important is understanding that if you like go to my post on this, I think that the thing people need to think about is, does it have a pull request? Basically, let me go through here. Who would develop and approve a list of trusted third-party audit. That's right.
Oh,
So
that was it. The audit,
yeah. Third-party audit would be the third thing, because what if it had been tested, but there was a critical bug or security issue that was not actually fully vetted, and it looked like it worked, and they pushed it in. It caused a major security vulnerability to the network, and people lost their money. It's not a good thing. So that's kind of that's was my thinking in that post. But I think the thing that's also important is people are saying, well, how will anything ever get pushed through from a proposal to referendum if you have to go basically code $100,000, $200,000 piece of software to even get it considered? And that's where the worker proposal system comes in. I think that having a proposal through the worker proposal system for your referendum proposal, to have that third-party audit budget, to have the code written and have it tested before it is finally voted on, is kind of our process. Now, I agree with others, 1 to 2% should probably be the worker proposal system. Range, I actually agree with Kevin and most of the other VPs on that issue, is that we should certainly see how it works first and not just throw it away like Dan thinks. I'm kind of in the middle. I like halfway agree with Dan that this is just too much inflation. It's just going to cause problems. It's too much money. It's going to devalue the token. It's just going to, we know where this is going to go with whales if there's just too much. But if we pull back to have just enough, and the process is so stringent to get money, then at least we can see what it does.
Well,
You know what I mean?
and also the thing that pulling it back more does is it makes it more competitive for the available resources. If there's kind of a slush fund and people are throwing stuff to see what sticks, and there's enough money to do a bunch of projects, you're going to have a lot more, attack vectors.
Right.
That it's, only a real small amount of projects are getting vetted very thoroughly and then squeezing through, so that kind of does address that a little bit. For sure.
I think so too. So that's our, big contribution, the most recently, as far as okay, guys, this is all great. You're working on the wallet. You're doing this. What pivotal stuff are you doing for the ecosystem that the token holders care about? I mean, probably the most important thing right now is referendum contract. And I designed and coded the entire UI, and Anna wrote 80% of the content. So.
Yeah, well, and I clicked through there and used it, and it makes a ton of sense. So the UI is beautiful, man. So good work on that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
for sure. And just going to the site just without prior knowledge and starting to click through it, it's like, okay, I see. This is simple. How you vote on referendums. It's a click.
That's all I've been saying. I know I annoy the engineers and the technical types.
It's a KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid, right?
Keep it simple, stupid. Yeah. Well,
I mean, most UX people, most designer types, are notoriously, we are known for annoying the technical types. Me and Eugene are the odd couple in that regard, but
yeah.
we know
I'm a backend guy. I'm a guy who's running the command line and just being fine with it, and we forget sometimes, we do forget sometimes.
The users, but I also overlook technical requirements and think that it's easier than it is, because I don't code a lot of backend. I'm mainly front end guy. So there's a lot of technical concerns and stuff I've learned through Eugene, that these guys are just 16 hours a day sometimes in front of their computers, nonstop. And some of them have families and stuff. So we don't think about that, the technical demand on some of the guys in the network. And that might, just at a startup, that's probably where some of that comes from, that they seem crabby or they're being rude or something.
Yeah.
And it's dude, I am running a Kubernetes instance with half the country's infrastructure on it right now. Leave me alone.
Do not break my concentration.
I don't care about the users right now. We'll talk about them later.
Yeah, that comes after. We don't ruin everything. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's
people are pretty important. I do think.
So. Well, absolutely. I mean, that's why the team is important. With that's why you need both. For absolutely. So we hit on a lot of stuff. Did you guys have? Is there any parts we missed on? I can kind of recap what we hit on, or what else are you guys up to? That sounds like the voting portal is kind of the top of the list right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's where a lot of our internal resources have gone. We're about to launch our new site. Our new website that has a lot of information on it, our incubator, kind of decentralized incubator that we're working on with Fractal. We should have that probably out right before the November hackathon, as well as the Electron Wallet, which will be open source And that, the more we look at it, as long as it's like open source, we're not collecting any money, there are some protections we need to put in place, but we may not have to fully worry as much about that as we do the iOS wallet, but not taking any chances. That's probably the time frame, though. November, our transparency dashboard that we were working on took backseat, and Chintai took backseat to the referendum UI.
Yeah.
And we admit it totally publicly. We admit it to our other partners who were on the projects. Like, it was one of the most critical things, and it was a problem that I really was like well suited to help with, you know what I mean? As far as people in the ecosystem, there are other people, they just weren't available. They're very busy at the time, and somebody had to step up and do something. So, you know, I did it, and basically it should wrap up. I think the actual voting process will be, will start probably in the next like 3 weeks to a month, based off of what comes out of the EOS Alliance meetings. They will present kind of a version 1 and version 2 constitution, I think, are the things highest on the list. And then right around that time, we should have, like maybe a week before or maybe a week after, we should have EOS votes and the documentation pretty much completed. So we're excited about that, because that's like perfect timing, which is why I pulled back on the other projects and I wasn't as available, because I'm like, wait, if I'm the guy that like pulls back on this and puts the referendum UI out 3 weeks and I'm late, the whole network's going to be mad at me.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like, and it's not my job. I'm not getting paid for it.
But you're jumping on it though. Yeah.
I mean,
I think we should also mention and give some background story to EOS Alliance, because
absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. What's go ahead. Talk about EOS Alliance.
So basically, you know, it's like we have a governance layer in EOS, right? But when it's fully distributed and nobody's taking charge, it's hard to organize people.
Yeah.
Common goal, you know, so we do need a natural leader in the community who would be neutral and, you know, not the VP, not biased, a neutral party who would be taking that leadership role and organizing and, you know, everyone around. And it takes, you know, somebody who has a lot of mutual respect and a good standing in the community. So I think Thomas Cox, who will be taking a leadership role in this organization, and this is non-profit organization. You can compare it to like a Apache, you know, Alliance, or any of the open source projects which are big, you know, have a big community. They all come with a non-profit organization which is taking that leadership role. So I think it was the right approach and we supported this proposal to establish EOS Alliance, who will be.
And we don't agree with everything, like most organizations. It's not perfect, but you know, it's the best we have right now, and we felt like give it a try, support them, give it a try. If it fails, we'll redact our support. If they really are doing a horrible job and people are not spending the money right and it ends up bad, we'll certainly pull back on that support, just like anyone else who supported them would. But we don't think that's going to happen. These are sharp people. They know what they're doing. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's one of the trade-offs that's always been there with like these decentralized autonomous corporations or blockchain in general, is that you know, corporations themselves or our standard business structures actually got us a lot of things. I mean, look at the developed world. It's gone crazy because of these, you know, because of the way that things are structured with a leader and with companies focusing and with their incentives aligned to try to make money, basically. So, but that's something that's missing in blockchain. So the EOS Alliance fills that gap a little bit, gives us some leadership. So can you tell me how that is working as far as, are they backed by BPs and BPs donate or basically contribute funds to pay people in EOS Alliance, or how's that work?
They're not backed by BPs. They are self-funded, I believe. I have not looked into details, but it's an organization which is self-funded, again, non-profit.
I mean, there's many crypto elite around those circles. So, you know, $1 million is maybe like 50 grand of them.
Yeah.
Some of them, you know, these guys are billionaires or at least associated with them, some of them. So I'm sure that money in general operations for like year one wasn't like a huge concern. People we don't know the details of that, but from what I understand, they have secured some level of funding or are working on it.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have to talk directly with Thomas to get those answers.
There you go. There you go. That'd be an interesting video.
I think it's a philosophical question, right? With the governance, US sometimes is being criticized for not being decentralized, enough. And I believe EOS Alliance will come under attack for exactly the same reason. For this is a centralized organization, and we're supposed to be decentralized.
What about the Ethereum Foundation, though? What about the Bitcoin Foundation? What about? I mean, they all have groups that look out for the interests of the network and try to at least communicate with those power elite that would have us put in a box, that would have us framed up on CNN as being a dark web, tool for these scammers and evil people, when it's already been proven that a very small fraction of crypto is even used for illegal activity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's ridiculous. It empowers the underbanked. It can be a settlement layer for utility for these great, dApps moving away from the traditional SaaS model and making it a little more fair, spreading out the value or even giving that value back to the community in a form of a DAC. So I just do not buy any of those arguments. They're coming from dated, centrist like Ethereum and Bitcoin maximalists and fanboys who, excuse me, I won't use fanboys, elitists, whatever you want to call them. That only believe in their bag. And why wouldn't they? Mm-hmm. It's in their interest to back up their bag. They're heavily invested in it. Their projects are on it. And never mind that there's only 400 users on the entire, I think it's like 2,000 users, 2,200 users on the whole network if you go to DApp Radar.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Well,
come
interestingly enough, on Twitter the last couple of days, Vitalik came out and said, I've always been in favor of proof of stake. And then he's also was working on some sort of paper regarding governance models within blockchains. And so,
but we all know Dan came up with this stuff long before Vitalik was even thinking about it.
Of course, but to the maximalists, there's a lot more going on out there to the maximalists to kind of stay open to, proof of work isn't the only way. It's fantastic. I'm a huge fan of proof of work, but it's not the only way. Just keep your options open, and we're experimenting here. So,
I have much.
We were given an update at a meetup recently, at a local meetup for EOS, what we have accomplished so far. And I just would like to mention, we are approaching 4,000 transactions per second. 4,000.
Yeah.
Just like that number, think for a moment. We are already above what Visa does today.
Mm-hmm.
We already
impressive.
30, 40 times what Ethereum does.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's with no scaling methods, no, multi-threading, none of that. So I'm open-minded more these days. I just have been, I kind of went into EOS world with more of like different protocols to solve different problems. Mm-hmm. So I supported Bitcoin, I supported Ethereum, and I really loved EOS because I think it had the best chance for adoption. So I dug more into it and committed more to it because I felt like it was the best horse, like long term. Over the next 3 to 5 year cycle of blockchain, I feel like, this is pretty much going to be like the main platform. Like it's got the community, it's got all the underpinnings, it's got the leadership, it's got the capital. I just need to focus on this, right?
Yeah.
I was, like a lot of us, I was a little late to Ethereum. I was completely late to Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
This is something I can really dig into and get out of the speculator mindset completely and just work on the tech and build up the community and do the stuff I like doing, not so much just that we all get caught in, what's the price today, when you're kind of the outsider just speculating and investing a little bit. But when you're committed and a part of a project, you worry less about that. You know what I mean? And I wanted to get into that mind frame. I had friends who had gotten into projects and they seemed to have moved away from that, and I really missed, I missed that part of nerding out on the tech, and not just being I got a little bit, I wonder what's going on today. And you're just kind of the outsider in the project. You're just watching the Ethereum guys talk about it, and they're the core developers. They're the people making stuff happen, and you're just a passive observer. So I felt like, wow, this is a chance for me to be a part of a community. Let me put my time into this. And over the last 3 or 4 months, I've noticed in key cities that are Ethereum and Bitcoin heavy, particularly in the Ethereum camps, cities like Denver, cities like Chicago, big Hyperledger, IBM, and a city there, an Ethereum city there. and into the Bay Area to some extent, you probably experienced this. There is an Ethereum contingent that hates our guts.
That's wild for sure.
I mean, viciously. I mean, in the worst possible way. Like, they are conspiring. They are back channeling. They are contacting the conference owner and trying to get you off the panel.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff goes on a lot. I thought it was just Dallas. Oh, it's just Dallas. They're just crabs and small-minded here. Like, scarcity mindset. I'm sure it's cool in Denver. I go to Denver and help found the Denver group, and I've got the same type of guys doing that. Like, doing that. You know what they do. You know what they do. It's like they'll say all this rude stuff, presumptuous stuff that isn't even accurate. Point the finger at you like it's your personal fault. Like, you did it. You made this decentralized piece of crap, and almost personally attack you. And then if you say anything back, they'll go, oh, see, this is the kind of people you guys have. You're horrible. It's just like you want to like punch them, you know? You're like, dude, like, if you said this to me in real life, you get knocked out at some point. Like, anybody, even the nicest person, would only take so much personal attack and somebody getting up in your face and being that way before you're like, yo, dude, I'm a grown man. Like, no, like I do not condone violence, but I will protect myself. You know what I mean? And, you know, that's, I mean, you feel that way. You certainly feel that way, but I think I've reacted a couple of times. I haven't been perfect. I'm not going to claim like I've been this humble steward that has just done every single thing by a long shot. I've blown up a couple of times. I'm not, you know, I don't claim that I'm the best person to deal with that person to person per se, but I have been a good evangelist.
Yeah, for sure.
I have stood my ground in these cities, and those people to know if they're going up against Steve Floyd, they have a strong adversary.
Well,
these other guys will be passive. These other EOS guys locally will be passive. I come in and I'm like parting the Red Sea.
Well, you went in and debated Richard Hart. That was fun. You know.
I mean, nobody else wanted to do it. I'll do it. I mean, he ate my lunch. Perception-wise, he kind of ate my lunch to the maximalist, but to those who are paying attention, I became likable by the end of the conversation, and now his audience was actually, maybe I'll check it out.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not necessarily most people are watching that aren't watching it to have their mind change. They're watching it to reinforce whatever they already believe.
It was a strategy with Richard. Like, I knew
most
Richard,
you can do is get people's minds a little open, you know, have them make a few points that they have to think about later. You know, that's the best you can hope for in a situation like that. So
it was like 3 a.m. So it was like really hard to, he like calls me, he hits me up out of nowhere. He's like, you want to jump on? I'm like, sure. Okay. And it's like 3 a.m. or 3:20 or something. I was on to almost.
Oh, where's he located?
I don't know, like Slovakia or something. Probably up in a castle in like Romania somewhere.
Oh, dude, he's such a legend. He's got that, like, he's always dressed. Yeah, he looks like an old king or something. Yeah, that's fantastic.
He's cool. I did his logo for Fluid Token, and I did a little design work for him. He kind of juked me, dude, because I like gave him that design. He's like, nah, I'll check it out. And he was kind of indifferent. And then I look at his site like 6 months later, and he's using it. I'm like, gee, thanks, man. Thanks for the compensation. You're still a cheapskate after all these years. Probably why you got so much money.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I gig on Richard. He's a good guy. People, I think, in large part, other than the like, recently he's had these like weird like Russian prostitutes or something like on his show. I don't know what's going on there. Ukrainian. I don't know. Go look at his show. He has this. I saw.
I check him out. I mean,
like this show isn't about Richard. I'm just saying, like it's throw me out. Other than some of the like stuff he does that's a little dated, as far as he's kind of like becoming. This is what happens when you get older. You're a man of your time. So we look at our forefathers and all the crazy crap they did. We'd be like, this dude was a sociopath. What is wrong with these people? They had like a peg leg and wooden teeth, and they're going around like raping slaves. Like, what is going on? And then it's contextual to the times. Not that any of that stuff is right by any modern standard. Just saying we look at the people contextually, like Richard, who came up in the late 80s, early 90s internet culture, and he was an 80s guy. You know, he was that dude. And if you took a guy from the 80s and put him in 2018, he would be like this total, like, it would be like, what is wrong with you, dude? Like, please be quiet. And I think he's just a dude stuck in the late 80s, early 90s, probably. You know what I mean? It's cool to look at girls in bikinis. It's cool to ride cool cars and stuff, and, you know, just be a tough guy. Like, that was what it was back then, macho man kind of stuff. You know, WWF, like, it was. You saw the hair. You know what I mean?
Well, I took a similar journey to you, Steve, and I think a lot of people were, and I'm on the media end, obviously, but I was general cryptocurrency for a long time, and then I wanted something to actually work on and dig into, and I'd been involved with Steemit and then EOS early, and DPoS was so interesting to me and Dan, and so I started really digging in and narrowed my niche down to where now I'm mainly just EOS. I got the EOS podcast, and my channel is mainly EOS. I became a Steemit witness because even though I'm not real technical, I wanted to get into as much of the tech as I could handle. So,
and you've done a great job.
Yeah.
Like, you really rallied the community and been a point of visibility right on there with Luke, and everybody appreciates your passion and attitude towards the whole DPoS thing, you know?
Yeah. So, it's something that I could dig into far enough, know enough about, and actually do some, being a witness is pretty fun. I'm new at it, but, I feel like I'm actually part of the game. So,
Right.
I agree with you of not, getting out of it. And I was day trading. I came from a day trading background. So that's what I was doing. I was basically day trading and talking general crypto. And now I'm, witnessing and talking EOS. So
And it feels good, to be out of that kind of mindset, because a lot of stress, it's worry. If you're really more of a creative person and might tend to lean a little more towards the introverted side than the extroverted side, you want to create.
Yeah.
You want to build something. Even if you're not super technical, you want to create something. And that process makes you feel good. You know what I mean? And gives you value, personal value, and makes you happy. You know what I mean? And if you don't have that, it sucks. You know what I mean? And the people out there that are probably on the fence watching your show or watching us, God, how can I get into this? First of all, don't be afraid to learn just a little bit of code. You don't have to learn a ton. You don't have to be a crazy software engineer, but like you said, you had refreshed on computer science principles and started to learn a lot about these systems, and you'd educated yourself. Your wife is a programmer, for example. So, you don't be afraid to learn about just basic computer science principles. It's not that hard. It seems like it, but there's a great course on PBS that goes over computer science, 101. If you go to the PBS, Google PBS computer science boot camp, or I forget what it's called, but just those PBS computer science, there's a show where this lady walks through with visualizations of the whole history of computer science, if you're not into reading books, and you can really learn about Boolean, and for loops and where all this stuff comes from, because it originally came from how they interface with circuits.
Learning opportunities right now are, amazing. It's back in our days, and I'm talking like an old man.
Yeah.
We actually had to read books.
It's easier.
And I would like to mention also, Steven, we should, make this point that hackathon is actually a great way to get engaged in the community, to work on real projects. There's a Wyoming Hackathon coming up later this week. We will be there on 7 and 8.
Or one of our workshops, the EOS.
Cost of entry for developer, it's $10. You can actually work with us on different projects. So it's an opportunity to get engaged in the community.
EOSRise.io. EOSRise.io. If you want the workshop to come to your city and you want to learn how to develop on EOS top to bottom, not really knowing much of anything, by the end of that 2-day period, Eugene and Phil will have you be able to spin up a node, produce blocks, sign a transaction, all that good stuff that you have no idea about now. By the end of that workshop, and it's cheap. These aren't $2,000-$3,000 like all these workshops in the Bay and in New York. We're charging $300-$400.
Nice.
Dirt cheap. With Phil Mesnier.
Yeah. And Phil Mesnier, he, for people who don't know, is the one who helped launch the actual EOS blockchain. So
he's the hardcore
anyone knows
developer.
Hardcore.
The freaking EOS blockchain.
Yeah, this guy.
I mean, nobody. He is our Obi-Wan Kenobi. I have nothing but the
He's all Gandalf.
Yeah.
Gandalf is better.
Yeah, Gandalf the Grey. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. He was at that the Bash House. Remember that?
Yeah, of course. That was fantastic, man.
Remember the story that Phil told, how inspiring that was? Because we're all in the middle age of our careers, 35, 45 range. He's at the end, and he says, it felt so good to feel like I created my magnus opus. And I was like about to cry when he said that. I was just
so
like,
awesome.
Whoa, it is possible.
That's a day that goes down in history right there. Having a beer with Phil Mesnier, after he launched the EOS blockchain. That was fantastic. What a cool time. I always think back on that.
I'll never forget that, dude. That was so epic.
Yeah, he's fantastic. I even came to your guys a few days after the launch when you guys did the workshop with Phil Mesnier and showed how to launch the EOS or how to connect the block producers in the back end. And I came to that just to watch, just because I didn't know what I was doing. I just came to see him. And
give it another 2 or 3 years, and I swear you will fiddle in the command line. Like you will know a little bit of stuff if you just keep playing with it. You know what I mean? Like I'm just saying it to you because I challenge you this today. Okay, Happy? At this time next year, I challenge you to be able to spin up and and create a node. You know what I mean?
I'll be making it happen. All right.
Top to bottom. I challenge you to get through that process. Have your wife show you, but then look up this time next year. Like, get it.
There's going to be a lot more tools by this time next year too.
Yeah.
Where,
there might be a GUI interface where you just click.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Like, okay, I spun up a node.
3 clicks. Yeah. Well, I'm constantly learning. I think that's one of the spice. That's part of the spice of life is to continually learn. Because I'm a curious person. That's why I do these interviews too. I'm genuinely curious. I like talking to people, figuring out what's going on. And
what have you been up to? I'm not trying to turn the tables here, but I haven't really heard.
Yeah, well, I've been. I run the biggest Steemit meetup in San Francisco.
Nice.
So that's been kind of going well because we found a killer venue. We got a sponsor, so that's cool. I launched the EOS Podcast, which has been gaining some good traction. This will be a podcast as well. I turned my channel into basically EOS centric media, DPOS media. So I'm not doing general crypto anymore. Mm-hmm. And then in my personal life, I got a sailboat. Me and my wife got a sailboat, so we're gonna, start heading around the bay and doing, outside the computer, super adventure, inside the computer, getting more technical, and just focusing on EOS now. And I spun up a node for my Steemit Witness also, so I got a little Steemit Witness campaign going on. Yes. Cool. I did in the command line with EOS. With Steemit, it's cool. There's a lot of
you had made it out like you had never even coded or touched any of that stuff. So
I hadn't actually until then. Just it's been a month now, and I just started digging in and been taking Linux classes and things like that, to get my So I've been hacking around in the command line. It's actually really fun because
it is
being almost never going in the command line in my life until just recently, and then doing stuff and have your computer turn into the Matrix and I'm like, oh yeah, we're going for it.
We all have that feeling.
We can have you running EOS node in no time.
Yeah. Well,
it won't take a year.
It won't take a year. It will take just a few days.
Cool. Well, then so that's the challenge, is for me to be running an EOS an EOS node by this time next year for sure.
Top to bottom, not even have to look at reference material. You know it by heart.
All right.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I like it. Challenge accepted. Let me go over what everything you guys talked about. Then you guys can give some links of the best places to find you, and then we'll wrap up. Unless you guys have anything else, anything pressing.
All right. What we were trying to get across. So.
Cool. So you guys got the. I wrote it down here, so I'm not just going off the top of my head, but you guys got the EOSRise.io, which is the workshop. Phil Mesnier and Eugene showing people how to spin up a node for EOS and do everything in the back.
More than that, end-to-end DApp development. It starts with that. Yeah.
Okay, so you got the workshop, you got the Electron Wallet, you got the Business Incubator, you got the Wyoming Hackathon coming up next year. You guys upgraded.
No, this is next week.
Next week, excuse me. The Wyoming Hackathon coming up next week. You upgraded your infrastructure, so your bleeding edge block producer. You've got the Valor Fund on hold temporarily, and then the big thing you're working on is the voting portal for the people, so that we
can referendum contract. Absolutely.
Referendum. So that is a impressive.
And the London Hackathon and the San Francisco Hackathon, we will both be at.
Okay, fantastic. I'll see you.
We'll see you soon. Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool,
actually, let's do like a DPOS party.
Yeah.
Like a dinner. Like I do these proof of stake dinners at the cities we go to. I'm doing one in Denver this Thursday. We should do a proof of stake dinner for the hackathon, dude.
That'd be killer.
If it's in the area, it would be a proof of tuna steak.
There you go. There you go. And then as far as where to find me for people, we got the EOS podcast, and we've got at Happy Money Man 1 on Twitter, and at Happy Money Man on YouTube, at Happy Money Man on Steemit. But check out the EOS podcast. That's the thing I'm most excited about right now, because that's been gaining some traction. I think people like to listen like while they're doing other stuff, as opposed to watch sometimes. Yeah. So I'm seeing.
I'll get you some guests. I'll funnel some guests from the ecosystem that are looking for interviews over to you. Let me know.
Killer. And this will be on the EOS podcast, so I'll send it to you guys, and you guys can.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, cheers, guys. Got anything else?
Thank you for having us.
All right, man. Pleasure to see you guys today, and cheers, my crypto friends.
Take it easy, guys.
Money is not the prime asset in life. Time is, and your time is just